Blessed love and peace. Continuation. Partaking of some nutrition, and then further viewings of recent downloads. Specifically, conversations concerning, again, ABA and Preach, the one with the fitness kinfolk, and then the other with the Sneeko Brethren. So at the moment, we are viewing the conversation directly between Brethren ABA and Sneeko. Interesting. It's actually a valuable exchange, a conversation, reasoning. ABA is somewhat of the elder brother, Sneeko being the younger brother. And ABA, in this conversation, actually a few years at this point. It was during the COVID situation. And I guess it's somewhat like midway through Sneeko's career, because it starts about 4 or 5 years ago, that I recall, seemingly. Watching some of his vlogs or whatever, and similarly with ABA, about the same time frame. So during that stage, again, a lot happens in Brethren Sneeko's life. Just when looking at the recent updates this past week about what happens in the past few years with the change in YouTube. I don't know if he was going through that at that moment, but that being a change about the income, the highs and lows with that, and then particularly the religious component of it at the moment. I'm reminded actually of a brief, the brief clip of viewing Brandon's given name. I think it's like Colonel Perez or something like that, but all respect to him, otherwise known as Tech or Immortal Technique, when he's talking with the Brethren Uncle Cornel West, and like the brief exchange that's shown on the clip is Tech asking him a question about like solutions, and basically Cornel West was, and there was something else that was going on. It was a press something or other, but it was like a brief exchange at the side as an aside, and Tech already being established as his own in terms of the hip hop situation, but giving deference to Cornel West and asking him like, yo, tell me what direction to go. And Cornel West was kind of like, just like, yo, mainstream, like find a lane and do that thing. So and it was very frustrating to see that brief exchange, because already knowing the benevolent work that Brethren Cornel West does through the years, that's very valuable, but at the same time very limited, particularly today. The bar is raised, the necessities are raised, and that solution, that advice ain't it. And recognizing also how much Brethren Cornel West, Uncle Cornel West, is like part of the system. And that's not accusation, that's just facts. So any advice that he's going to give is going to be along those lines. And then witnessing a year or so later after that, his situation between Harvard and Theological Seminary and otherwise. So anyways, I'm reminded of that conversation, that brief exchange, in watching the exchange between Brethren ABA and Sneeko. Very different circumstances and implications, and even communities that are involved. However, interesting, similar kind of elder brother, younger brother type of exchange. Now, in that, just looking at the basics, the periphery of the conversation, just ABA is showing like that patience of like the elder, and like listening, working to communicate back, but then Brethren Sneeko being very agitated, very excited, very energetic, and also disrespectful, cutting off the person when they're talking, disrupting them, interrupting, yeah. So disrespectful, just as a basic premise, just as a basic principle, regardless of who you're talking to, even if it's a child. Interrupting one whilst they're talking, asking them a question, the person answering the question, taking the time to respond and give an answer, and then whilst giving the answer, interrupting. And the notion of doing it for show, or the entertainment aesthetic, whatever, that's not it. It's just basic notions of respect, because that's where your solution is, to remember what relationship is, what the purpose and the value of that is, the patience in listening to somebody else because wanting the patience in return. And it's not even a quid pro quo, but just not understanding that when we don't give that patience, we have little ground to expect it. And that's what Brethren ABA is trying to convey about the importance of family and solution, and additionally, but the fact that Brethren Sneako is just interrupting him continually, repeatedly, and not even with blatant malice, but just that's his habit. Whether he's doing it intentionally in terms of like the sensational value for entertainment purposes, or he's also a very enthusiastic person. Again, the wheels are turning fast, and so in that situation, yes, he's probably much of his experience with interacting with kinfolk is that he already knows what they're saying, and he knows there's only so much time to have a conversation, and so he's trying to like fast forward it to like the crux of the situation, and so maybe that has some kind of efficacy or further efficacy when dealing with kinfolk who he's kind of already kind of predetermined the responses or whatever. But even then, if that's the case, then don't talk with them kinfolk. Don't reason, because when now that's one part, and I'll get to further reasons about that. But just the basic solution is just how we live and how we treat life itself. That's where our solutions are. And much of the frustrations is towards our own selves not doing that and blaming it on others. That's nasty and it's powerful. So that's from Sneako side, observing the disrespect. Now on the ABA side, what we observe is, again, him giving like the elder sellout kind of thing of like, you're just gonna have to like temper expectations and ambitions and everything else like that, and like do a small thing here, do a small thing there. Now his way of doing that, his way of articulating is somewhat, to be honest, further substantive, and it's very much agree with both of them, both of the brethren, and disagree with the brethren abstaining from finding a middle ground that proficiently addresses both sides' legitimacy. So ABA is emphasizing how everybody gets caught up in the notions of the system and overthrowing the system or whatever else global, they lose sight of what's right amidst them, their house, the neighbors, and additionally, and have these notions of just different types of imperialistic notions at the cost of the basic relationships around oneself. And ABA is accurate with that. However, his suggestion as a solution is, again, dissatisfactory, particularly for Brethren Sneako, because it's like a drop in the bucket, and it's like just acquiescing and trying to like carve out one's own little niche or whatever amidst the nasties. So there's that. Brethren Sneako on his side is talking about like accuracy, and it gets a little bit tropey, because it's like big banks and big government and pharmaceuticals, and there's all legitimacy, all accuracy with that. However, like that's when kinfolk start to get into that power of them, they got all the power, they got the money, this and that. You're not, kinfolk have yet to like have a genuine perspective of reality and the conditions of today, and the conditions of yesterday, the conditions of tomorrow, the conditions and the nature of the eternal. And even when kinfolk are very adamant about calling out the corruption, system, institution, this and that and the other, there's a disgenuineness in those proclamations and in those politics when there's an absence of the recognition of a further perspective of actuality and reality, without even getting into the realm of spiritual per se, but just recognize the power that they don't have all the power. They don't have the majority of the power. And you can't even argue one way or the other because you don't even know who they is. So it's your own imaginations and what you've been told anyways. What are black pill, red pill, blue pill, bi pill? How about that? Sirens. All of a sudden, sirens. I just started this joint and it's been quiet. So anyways, that's one of the frustrations of just watching that and knowing it's been that way for a while. Because I gave the quiet shout out to Sneako years ago and still have not heard back from them directly, so to speak. But that's the other thing too, is that when kinfolk have that awareness, a genuine awareness and a genuine like motivation to do something like thorough, no, like, yo, we only got this life. I'm young. I know I have some knowledge. I got some capability. Yo, let's do things. And they can't find the guidance, the leadership that says, here's how you do it. Because the leadership that the kinfolk are looking for are leadership that are established through the credentials of the things that they're criticizing. What up? Why to go to a YouTuber? Somebody who's made their way as a YouTuber to find a solution outside of the system. Or like the only people who are worth talking to are people who have like some type of credentials from the system. Like, and expect them to have a solution that's outside of the system. That's silly business. It takes further, just to be honest about that, within ourselves. And then again, that's actuality. Now going back to the notion of the reality, and first of all, reality is from the Eastern sense in terms of existing beyond the senses. So that is an existential conversation. It's very relevant. It's very appropriate and necessary, but it's somewhat next level, not greater than or less than anybody, just a reminder. But that's just one thing when I utilize the term reality, when us on our side utilize the term reality with a big R, it's a matter of recognizing like the real, the unchanging, the eternal. Now, before that realm, before that like huge step. Oh yeah, okay. Just the logic of it, just purely logic, staying in this realm, in this abstract, this realm of the abstract, the earthly abstract, just logically, just recognize the fallacies, like fallacy is a strong word because it suggests like an absolute discrediting, but the holes within that logic of them, not disagreeing with you, and again, ask my credentials. I don't have citizenship. I've never voted. I don't have a bank account. And so am I advocating for like a combo? I'm a sharing response because it becomes angst and that becomes distracting. So I'm sharing and letting the ether speak, inviting the ether to speak like the sounding bell. Anyways, solution, reality, holes in the logic. So in those criticisms of and being frustrated and infuriated just because of like Sneaker Brother and Sneako says about being lied to this whole time and being angry. So first of all, recognize your anger is antithetical to solution. Hype and like excitedness, agitatedness, that's antithetical to solution. To recognize that off rip, regardless of what the situation is, that's antithetical. So let's, like as Brethren ABA is talking about, yo, calm down, relax. Brethren ABA is very magnanimous in his patience in talking with Brethren Sneako, staying focused amidst continual, repeated, direct disrespect of being interrupted, staying on task, not even like mentioning that, not saying, yo, you keep cutting me off, yo, you keep disrupting me, you keep interrupting me. And recognizes staying focused on what he has to say, whatever reason why he's in that situation, he finds some value in it. So he stays focused on that and recognizing it. He does address the notion of Sneako interrupting people and presuming to know what they're going to say before he does, and showing evidence to the contrary when he's been in conversations and been surprised by what people say. So he lets that speak whilst Brethren Sneako continues to interrupt him. Because Brethren Sneako has heart and is genuinely striving, and I think Brethren ABA recognizes that, which is why he invests in the conversation. Brethren Sneako has heart and is like genuinely yearning, but at the same time he's got brainiac, and is like frustrated, genuinely frustrated, and trying to find solutions. Too often finding people like not to the capability or not to the same levels of himself. Like being like an athlete, like an Olympic athlete runner, and trying to like up the game further, recognizing like there's a team of runners that runs faster than he does, and he has to train to be able to run faster than them. He's trying to look for people who can run faster than those runners. Meanwhile, when he's trying to go to other people, like they all slow, and he's trying to like, yo, come on, we gotta train. So That's some of what is understood in his mannerisms, and that he doesn't mean it. And at some point, he knows, he's aware of what he does, but at the same time, like, he's just so frustrated that it matters less to him, because he's consumed with the ambitions of perfection, and that's what it is too. A lot of ego. That's for everybody. That's what I've painfully learned from the activism years at Amnesty International and otherwise. So, Brendan Sneeko talks about like the right, like accurately, the corruptions and everything, systemic and otherwise, but where it's lost, the logic in his platform, his position is when he starts. I already said a blessing, so I'm going to say this and do this. When he starts to talk about them and attribute all the power, they got all the power, they got all the money, right there. That's where he's like, pause right there. Let's be actual about this. They don't. Because first of all, if you're going to say that, that's an absolute statement, and absolute statements tend to be inaccurate. So that's one thing, and it provides relief. It's a venting of those frustrations, but in that venting, in that little indulgence, it's empowering the antithesis of what you're working for. So just logically recognizing that, and then first of all recognizing that that is not a true statement, that is not an accurate statement. Oh, that's not a true statement, that's so absolute and negative. It is an inaccurate statement. They don't have all the power, because if you're going to make that assessment, the determination, you're going to have to define who they are. Where's your evidence of them? Where do you get that evidence from? And names, dates, and otherwise. Not just anecdotal Rothschilds or Masons or whatever else. Like that's Rothschild, that's one name. Masons, okay, that's one organization. Who else? You say the Masons have all the power, the Rothschilds, but all of them like them. Who's them? You're conjuring your enemy in that respect. So understand the logic of that and the illogic of that. It's easier. Scapegoats. Give the power away from yourself, because the power of change and righteousness is within you. Justice is within you, and it's weighty and it's nasty. It means letting go, things go. That smoky smoke, the pretty, and everything else. No homo. It means committing to life and to woman. The sparrow's back. So, but it's heavy and it's nasty, and that's as much as I know, because I'm still working on myself. But that's where truth is. That's where the solution is, when we truly look for that. When that's what we truly want, rather than just a nicer fix. So that's one thing, just framing the conversation. They have all the power. Who's them? Why are you giving them all the power? And even then, that's not true, because if you're recognizing the problems and you're looking for solutions, obviously you have some type of belief, just plain logic. You have some belief that there's a possibility of overcoming whatever their powers are, whatever their monies are. So for you to ask that question, already that's evidence of your acknowledgement of a solution beyond whatever powers you're attributing to them. All the powers that you're attributing to them. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that nature, just even in the abstract, conceptually. One thing also is to study the game. Study the motherfucking game of imperialism and civilization. Not just the past century. Study the motherfucking game. For the thousands of years around the world, not just Europe, not just the Middle East, not just China, not just India, Africa, Scandinavia, the Western Hemisphere, from the Guarani and the Inca, Mayan, Aztec, the Diné, all the way to the Inuit, Shawnee, Cherokee, Creek, Muskogee, Haudenosaunee. Study the motherfucking game of how it works, not just in this generation. From the beginning, from the rip, from creation itself, understand the motherfucking game. And don't get mad. Understand and see your place in it. There's always the yin and the yang. You already know that. There's cause and effect. There's healthy and unhealthy. There's pleasure and pain. There's essential and not essential. So everything that is experienced today is simply a continuation of what is studied and taught before. There are new manifestations of it, there are new iterations and adjustments and additionally, but all at the same time it's all deconstructible to what's already presented before us. And when amidst studying the motherfucking game, study the holy teachers, our ancestors and prophets and sages who persevere through it and show us the notes, show us the songs and the rituals, and learn what some of those are. Not have to practice, not have to believe it initially, but have some literacy so it's not just blind swinging at some UFC scrapper. Train. And to be honest, on that note, how about this? Here's an idea. I saw the video a while ago, a few weeks ago or whatever, about you sparring with the brethren Anderson, I think is his name. So I think it was a fair thing. Like you held your ground. Like you didn't buckle. So kudos to you. You took some licks. And I can't even say it wasn't even a bad look, to be honest. Like you held your own. You stood your ground. You stayed on your twos. You look very smaller, to be honest. I mean, doing the streaming thing with the wife beat or whatever might look one thing, but like you look like half the size of the brethren in that ring. That's not disrespect. That's just facts. So, and then when he started like talking and doing that kind of like what's brethren's name? The undefeated brethren doing that talking while said this is about to get dinner. So I mean, obviously that's his game. Like it's obvious. So there's no disrespect. I mean, there's no loss of there's no loss in that situation. You're learning, so it's acknowledged. There might seem to be something that precipitated that in terms of like him disrespecting initially, but then at the same time, like it seemed like be quelled over, and then that invitation to sparring. So beautiful. Here's a consideration of technique, though. You didn't do any Brazilian jiu-jitsu. What's going on? Pull a Royce Gracie and last a little bit longer. So instead of trying to go toe-to-toe, throwing blows, get to the ground, grapple, do the Royce Gracie, and put your feet up and keep him at a distance and last through the rounds rather than just getting bloodied up. Show how many hits you can take. Respect for that. But at the same time, I guess you both had boxing gloves on, so maybe that was like the pre-established agreement or whatever of no grappling, just boxing. That was a little bit, if that was the case, then that would have been a little bit limiting. But serious, like, yo, drop to the ground and stop taking them blows. And like at least fend off, like see like what he can do, because he's gonna be the aggressor, generally speaking. And if he's not, then you can look even tougher, being the aggressor towards him. But that's gonna stop, or at least minimize how many of those. He wasn't even throwing haymakers, but like, and he wasn't clean connecting on many of those, but it was enough. Like ain't too much blocking when it's hit like that. So anyways, that's just a thought. But like I said, looking at you both had on boxing gloves, so maybe from the beginning not having boxing gloves. If you had regulars, actually probably it could have been some breakage of facial features. So but if it's sparring, it's sparring. And if it's going to be MMA, it's MMA. Anyways, I don't know the details about that as a side note. But again, for solutions, look outside the system. Don't look within those who have credentials from the system to find an answer about outside the system. Brother ABA, he's probably as honest as it gets whilst being in the system. Probably, like his trope is very diplomatic. It's very Ethiopian in terms of like being knowledgeable, being honest, being practical, and focusing on the priorities, which is family, most definitely, and sharing some practical advice. It's very it's a beneficial part of wisdom. Now that being said, don't agree in terms of, I mean, not that's not a matter of agreeing or disagreeing, but it's limited. The advice that he's going to share, or not say going to, but the advice that he shares based upon his attachments to convention. He can tolerate and absorb rhetoric and interests that go beyond what he himself is willing to do. That's a strong testimony to him about like not being afraid of the stigmatization, and even in his positioning within convention, being able to entertain and respond intelligently and respectfully to people who voice those things, because there's a lot of people in convention, particularly in the hierarchy, that can't hear that and just either be quiet or not. Most people, there are a lot of people who can't hear it at all, cannot hear it, and there are additional people who cannot hear it without saying something derogatory or negative back, because if they just hear it, that influences their standing within just the suggestion itself. When the mind is very powerful in those elements, just hearing that affects that person's ability. All of a sudden, they don't get accepted into the inner circles of wherever they're at. If they hear it and don't say anything to negate it, same thing. Enough said. The transcript has already been shared amongst those who know. So kudos to him for listening and responding, but at the same time he's attached, so there's only so much essentially that he's going to do. Now he can have they gave the capitulation thing, like if he gave you a suggestion, he said if you do this and it doesn't work, then, or if you still think that, then he's willing to recognize like something's inaccurate on his platform. So he's very honest and modest, humble, and honest in that respect. So with that honesty, there's always a propensity of evolved philosophy and otherwise. I'm not saying that evolving to where we are otherwise, but just recognizing that he has that honesty even amidst the attachments to convention. So there's respect for him. And like I said, that's probably as honest as it gets whilst being in convention. And his being a comedian affords him some of that latitude, even though it's not afforded to Dave Chappelle or other people that are in similar positions. But Dave Chappelle is a little bit further into the echelons of the elitism within society, and much further spotlight on him. So anyways, kudos to Brother ABA for that. And again, solutions. Yo holler. Solutions for days. But to just be honest in the path of where to look for solutions, and what the criteria is that you have for people who are potential solution providers. And when that criteria requires credentials in the very systems and institutions that are being criticized, it's self-defeating. It's self-limiting, and that's defeat. So now that being said, the intention here is, I will go back to what ABA says about focusing on the home, and actually that's very wise. Recognizing the frustration of the notion of it being just perceived in the effectiveness or the susceptibility of it being just a drop in the bucket. I'll just focus on the home thing, but that's exactly the necessity. And here's a middle ground solution of both of those methodologies. Sneeko on the one hand talking about the macrocosm, and brethren ABA talking about the microcosm, but not just the microcosm, but just like the immediate experience. Here's a middle ground for brethren like Sneeko, taking whatever the materialities are at the moment, getting land and establishing a village, even just establishing a residential compound. That sounds very cultish or whatever, but establishing an apartment building in the woods, where however many people you decide are reside, and having that a school, a center, so that you're actually living optimally, finding what your solution is. Like, what does life look like? What do people do in the ideology that you champion? What do people do on a daily basis? And like live that as much as possible. What do people eat? I don't know if you're vegan, but that's a big part of the solution, to be honest. I know Brother ABA, I don't think is vegan. And talking about alcohol, and additionally, that ain't the solution either. That's the escape. Um, so recognize that if that enthusiasm and energy is truly genuine for solution, um, then recognizing that. So middle ground solution in that particular conversation, that reasoning, is applying whatever monies one has at that moment as part of convention. Because recognizing when you focus on money, it's not the mindset is. It's not even a matter of them having all the money. It's when you establish a methodology of cooperation and issue currency for that, and people value that currency. That's all on you. When you talk about them and their money and this and the other, that's the subordinate being dissatisfied with the subordinate, but at the same time not being willing to go beyond subordinates to actual sovereignty. And again, that's all on oneself. So, and it's just honesty and it's just logic. That's it. The middle ground, amidst whatever monies kinfolk got from streaming, this, that, and the other, purchase some land someplace in the country. Don't worry about like being by the club or anything else like that. Purchase some land, because all those things are part of the trappings that are being admonished. So it requires some maturity. It requires some devotion, some dedication, some commitment, some discipline. But get land and establish residence. Recognize that it's not a matter of, well, let's finish with this part. So, and then include people, a modest number of people who are similarly devoted. It's not just a free ride, but are willing to put up too, in complementary skill sets, sharing of the tasks that are necessary, living as off the grid as possible and autonomous from the infrastructure of the system, negotiating with necessary technology and otherwise. That's a middle ground solution that's very accessible, and provides space for further conversation, stability, independence from conventional decision making. So that's one tangible solution at this moment. And I watched. There's a part one and there's a part two. Again, it was a while ago, and this is turning into somewhat of a react type of situation or a watch along. So my intention at this point is actually to play it whilst I listen to the rest of it. No, it's about a half hour. Wow, we still got a half hour. The second part is half hour. Udibanga. All right. So. Yeah. What else did I say before this begins? Because I don't know what the rest of the content is. One beneficial thing, again, when we study the game, we study those before us who find some solutions, whether it's Islam or otherwise. We can talk about that too. To recognize that the solutions don't happen overnight. That's when, again, get beyond the symptom of the mentality of the culture that is being admonished. The notion of quick fix, fast food, fast drugs, fast solutions. To recognize that the systemic methodology of benevolence is already here. It's already being done. Tapping into it thoroughly and readily involves letting go of a lot of things that people are accustomed to. Talk with Rastafari brethren. Talk with kinfolk who are living outside of the system to find the solutions that you're actually looking for, rather than just easily refuting the suggestions shared by earnest people within the system. Odi, does that sound like it should be applied to myself? That's just another humble suggestion. And to recognize when studying the game, studying the history, that it's not the solution, the macro solution doesn't change overnight. It happens through generations. That the prophets and ancestors and sages that we have from old, who change the game or establish lineages that endure, it occurs through a number of generations. And that's not a matter of quelling the goal or the objective. That's not. It's a matter of just understanding that's part of the nature of the game. Quick change regimes and quick change, regime change or whatever, that's all methodologies of imperialism. And it might seem completely like effective, the down throw of the Russian Empire, or the Curtain Wall, or these dramatic things might seem like, okay, that's what should be done with imperialism today. But to understand that an establishment of a righteous civilization occurs through tedious discipline, day after day discipline of a number of generations. And each generation, there are different stages, from withdrawal from the oppression and downpression and sufferation, into identifying what the healthy discipline is, into practicing and systemically cultivating the healthy discipline, and that including how we nourish ourselves, agriculture and manufacturing and trade, and then like continually educating our children and the next generations for continuing the traditions and rituals that guide us in the rhythms and relationships of every year. That's part of the solution, and it's easier done when kinfolk are living together away from the pollutions of imperialism. So that's a solution. And when kinfolk, I don't know what people's net worth are or whatever else to have that availability, but finding someplace in the U.S. or someplace else where those resources, those material provisions can be utilized to a secure stewardship of a large area of land, whether it's a hectare, whether it's 10 hectares, whether it's 100 hectares, whether it's 1,000, but establishing residence accordingly, and then living optimally according to the discipline that is found as solution. That's humble suggestion. So with that being said, we continue on with this video and see if there's any other parts to stop and pause and contribute. So we're at half an hour at this video, 37, and there's 30 left. I'm 2 minutes into this joint. We're 2 minutes into this joint. So, and this is part 2. So I've already responded basically to the gist of what's been shared in the first joint. And we're just continuing with this, watching this, and then it's basically going to be the video. I mean, just going to be the audio because I'm watching this. I don't know about Photoshop having image sharing or whatever, so it's just a video that was from some website. I just looked it up and found this one. So here it is. Continuing the conversation.
Sometimes I just talk. You're not making much sense.
Okay, I had this series. You've seen the 1 Minute Podcast before, right, Abba?
Yep.
I have interviewed people on the street. You've done street interviews for a long time too. The general realization that I've come to from interviewing people, and I do listen. I listen to so many people. Like every 1 minute podcast I do it once a week is like 3 hours long. And I talk to so many normies getting off the train every single day. I don't interrupt them. I let them talk. After years of doing it, years of street interviews before that, what I've come to realize is most people don't think. Most people just believe what they're told. Most people accept the reality that's in front of them. And the reason why I think that I can predict people quickly is the general idea that people trust the elites too much. People trust what they're told too much. And they put faith into people who have power, and you shouldn't, because they don't care about you. So everyone is virtue signaling. Everybody has this false empathy. Everyone has a false idea. And my conversation with Jadian was annoying because he's defending people that are silencing him. He got banned on Twitch, and he's still defending the platform that banned him. Like, why are they censoring him? People never think about that. Like, I talked with Destiny, another debater. He got banned on Twitch, too. And he's like, well, I said some bad things. I'm like, you should be fighting against that. Freedom of speech is dead. You know what they promote on Twitch? Hot tub streamers. Simp behavior. They want to have men just go, and feeding all their money to this platform and taking away their power.
I think you're conflating two things. I think you could look at Twitch and say they do some fucked up shit, and also recognize the ways in which your behavior contributes to a negative situation. This is just like any relationship that you have. You could say that your partner cheated on you and that they were fucked up in that relation. You could also look at your own behavior within that relationship and say, you know what, I was neglectful. I didn't listen to my partner. I didn't treat them really well. Two things can be true at the same time. Jadian could have been wronged by Twitch, and Jadian may felt that he owed Pokimane.
Why do you think
both those things can be true?
Why do you think he felt like he owed Pokimane an apology?
That's for Jadion to know.
But
That's none of my business.
What do you think?
To be honest with you, I didn't even look up the situation that deeply. So I don't know the ins. I don't know what exactly he said. I know he said some stuff off the cuff and that she feels something. I don't know that. So I'm not going to speak on that. But as a man, if I say something about somebody else and I don't like what I said, and I said it publicly, I'll apologize publicly. Not because somebody else told me, not because YouTube's breathing down my neck, because I feel like I did something wrong. Part of being a man is being accountable to yourself. And that means that you showcase that accountability outwardly. So if I say something about you, right, even if you don't call me out, even if you don't demand an apology, I'm going to still come out and say, you know what, yo, last week I fucked up. Right? I was talking about Sneeko, and I said some shit that now I think is foul. Even if you're like, yo, it's not necessary, I'll still apologize because it's in me. You get what I'm trying to say? I think it's very great for so many people to look at themselves and be like, I was wrong. And we need more of that because too many people get up on these platforms and always talk about others. Oh, women are trash. Women are trash. Nigga, you live in your mom's basement and you ain't showered in a week.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody wants to. Everybody's talking about others. Oh, the other gender's the problem. Oh, they're the reason why I don't get any. No, it's you most of the time. 95% of the time, you're the problem.
That's why I have these conversations.
I will not get on anybody who gets up on here and says, you know what, this is why I fucked up, and I want to hold that on me. You get what I'm saying? It's too much. It's too much. Everyone else is not enough looking inward. So that's what I would say about that.
I agree. Chad is saying that you're kind of you ride the fence a little bit. I think Playback does the same thing. I think a lot of commentary channels, they want to go red pill, and they decide to take, like, if they make one red pill video, they'll balance it out by doing like a woke video in turn so that you have more mass appeal. Do you think that's what you do?
No, but why do you think that's what we do? Why do you think that we're doing that?
To get a wider audience and so that you don't get canceled.
Right, I understand the intention that you're putting behind. I understand like the mentality. Why do you think that we're doing it? What have you seen from us that convinces you that we're being disingenuous?
I don't know about disingenuous, but yeah, look.
Well, that is what you're insinuating, which is fine. Why do you think that?
Maybe it's not intentionally disingenuous, but maybe you are trying to appeal to everybody, and you're trying to, like, in my opinion, red pill is just the truth. Like, I feel like there's no doubt in my mind that what's really going on, about the gender war that's going on, about the spiritual warfare, about what's really happening in the world. And then you'll make some videos that kind of like tote the line. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And Playback, like, I talked to Agent, and like whenever I say that, like, they'll make a red pill video and then immediately make a woke video. And then he laughed when I said that, which if they laugh, then that's how I know it's true.
Okay, that's a wild reach, but I get what you're saying. I would say to you, maybe I don't understand this. Why is it that because I agree with some of what you say, because I don't agree with everything that you say, I'm inherently disingenuous, or I'm coming at this from like I'm trying to appeal to a group?
Well, at the same time, I'm behind. I need to catch up on your videos. But what's your take on the manosphere?
Okay. Hypothetically, even if it's not me, all right. Let's say you're not talking about me. Let's say you're talking about Playback. Yeah. Is it not possible that Playback agrees with certain things within the red pill community, but not everything?
Maybe I think a lot of people are brainwashed and people don't want to fully agree with someone because it's provocative and because you come off aggressive. So this is a general take I hear from a lot of people who watch my videos or watch Fresh and Fit or the Manosphere stuff. Andrew Tate, any of that, they'll say like, "Oh, I agree with some things, but not everything." But in my opinion, it's just the genuine. I think how often do you hear that? I agree with some stuff, but not everything.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Because it's just people's way, I think, of inserting their opinion. And it's just
okay. So here's a hypothetical. Right? I am not a religious person whatsoever. However, I do think there's some aspects of religion I think are really good. Okay. Be it the idea of that they formulate good communities, that they commune everybody together for Sunday church, just so people spend time together, that they give people a set of certain values, be it like love your neighbor, this and that. But when they talk about shit like stoning gay people, I'm like, maybe you lose me. Okay. Or when they talk about certain shit like, you can't fuck before marriage, maybe you lose me. Is it not possible that I see green with certain aspects? Well, I think most of life is a middle ground.
Okay. Do you think that there's a gender war going on?
Well, no. Hold on. We switching topics right now. Can we not just stick to this before we go to something else?
I agree with what you're saying.
Okay. So then let's go back because you initially started this with you felt like me, Playback, a couple other groups of people were being maybe a bit disingenuous because we were trying to appeal to the mainstream. I guess the point I'm trying to relate to you is that me having been part of the pickup artist community when I was coming in as a young man, and me learning from a lot of that stuff, there was a lot from that I could take that was helpful to me. And so I always repeat this stuff. And if you go through my videos, you'll see I repeat a lot of the same shit. I never said the pickup community is perfect. I said some of the shit that they taught me is fantastic. And I even repeat a lot of that stuff. But it's not because I repeat some of that stuff that I think everything is wonderful. And most of the folks who I looked up to in the pickup artist community when I was there at like age 19, 20, they grew out of it, and they tell you in later years, oh, I changed my mind about certain things because life experience.
I'll pause here for a second and just respond to a general issue concerning the comments that Brother ABA makes about the LGBTQ sodomite kinfolk. And this is also based upon additional recent videos and recently viewed, and also through the years hearing the platform. So the basic, just as a review, the basic take on from Brethren ABA and Preach both is a proclamation of being straight, but then also being accepting and finding nothing wrong with people being LGBTQ and committing sodomy. So, one, I've already communicated that from our side, no hate to anybody. We love everybody. We'll say that everybody's going to heaven. How about that? Every one of us answers for everything that we do, say, and think in this life before we return to heaven. But everyone's going to heaven, so there's no condemnation of us towards anyone, racist, classist, sodomist, or otherwise. That being said, I can personally talk about being on that kind of platform many years ago about live and let live. Why worry about what somebody else is doing, like drugs or otherwise? The problem with that platform today is that now sodomy, and LGBTQ is fused with the hierarchy of government and the authoritarianism. So it's not just a matter of people doing what they want to do behind closed doors and minding their own business. Now it's a matter of public policy, and it's changing. It's taking space in the public discourse. Flags being flown over city governments and local governments, federal governments, positions, offices, initiatives, grants being issued within academia and that power authoritarian experience, and then further in positions of recruitment at high schools, teachers proselytizing young children about sodomy and LGBTQ. So it's not just a matter of letting in, let live. Now it's a proactive looking for converts, looking for children, and enacting laws that govern everybody's behavior, and it's an increasingly totalitarian movement, and because of that, the whole live and let live thing, that's 90s, that's 80s and 90s. It's not today, because that's not the actuality. And when people spend time talking about that instead of talking about other priorities that are affecting people, when people equate somebody's interest of having sodomy and prioritize that as a public discourse of what's on the docket for discussion at city halls and federal legislations, when people are talking about that instead of talking about the abduction and rape and murder of indigenous women, or the rates of homelessness, or other types of trafficking, when there's priority given to these other things of sodomy and otherwise, and legislation and grants and other favorable attention and actions and resources, materiality provided for those interests at the cost of those investments being deprived, and those contributions and necessities being deprived to people who are in urgent conditions. That's problematic. So that's why that position is untenable, particularly today. So no hate, love everyone, but that includes ourselves, and the intention of protecting ourselves from the abuses of anybody on anybody. Continuing on.
Makes me realize that certain things that I believed when I was younger no longer apply. I'm just saying the same could apply for a lot of other folks in regards to most things, be it the way you view voting, the way you view women. The way I view women at 18 is not the way that I view women at 32. But have stuff you believe in, but don't make the stuff that you believe in consume you in that sense. And there's a lot of stuff they talk about reflection and pondering that you realize, like, oh, okay, there's a certain sense of like, as you get older, and this is true for most people, and you're going to go through it yourself, you're going to have a better view of yourself. Almost like you're seeing yourself in the third person. You know how you play video games first person shooting all the time? Playing a third person shooter is completely different because now you got your whole body in frame. You see what it looks like when you crouch. I think as human beings, we gain more of that perspective as we get older in life if we're reflective enough. And what I used to believe at 21, I no longer believe now at 32, just because life's experiences and my own reflections realize like that's not true at all.
Maybe
like,
there's some legitimacy within what Brother in ABA mentions right there, but at the same time, what he's also not addressing, and it's very understated, and maybe he's less aware of it, that he experiences that very few other brethren experience is intergenerational living, living in community with elders who are able to help put things in perspective. Elders, I'm talking about like grandparents, uncles, in addition. So it's not just an individual, particularly an individual man, figuring things out for himself and trying to find people who he can trust somewhat to give him some advice when he's particularly like stumped with something. So Brethren ABA is giving that kind of like advice in terms of his of Brethren Sneako's personal individual maturation process based on what Brethren ABA experiences himself. Kind of again that older brother, younger brother kind of trope. However, what Brethren ABA is not addressing, at least up to this point, is that he himself is tremendously benefited from having relationships with other elders in his community and his family who are able to help him put into perspective the life experiences that he has at young stages of his life, so that rather than just perceiving certain challenges as universal and absolute and like insurmountable, and talking to an elder, there's perspective of like, oh yeah, everybody experiences that. Oh yeah, that's just fleeting. When I was your age, this, that, and the other, I remember so-and-so, they had to go through this, that, and the other too. And here's how we get through it. So when a young brethren is by himself and doesn't have that perspective, that relationship to have perspective, those little hang-ups can seem like everything. So it's beneficial. It's not just a matter of time and waiting to mature and waiting for it to happen and have the aha moment. But Brethren ABA knows himself that how much he benefits from the interactions of others, elders, particularly within his community. He talks about that through other videos. That's what I'm referencing in that. Continuing.
You become more sedentary as you've gotten older. Like maybe it's because it's like you become less of that aggressive man that you were at 21. Like right now, I'm very like I'm all about my testosterone balls, manosphere shit. And then maybe you're just 32 and you're like, man, let me settle down.
You like fucking Sneako?
We all do, yeah.
You like fucking you, pussy?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, that shit gets old.
Nah.
100%.
Nah.
100%. And I could point to you hundreds of players who are online right now who have videos of them telling you new pussy gets old.
Right there. He's making a point, Brother ABA is, but it's very disrespectful, and that shows evidence of evidence of a lack of healthy relationship and trust on Brethren ABA's part about even being able to make his point that has validity, but to be able to make it, communicate it in a respectful way. He's throwing all sister under the bus, all the women of his family, by just referring to women in that way. Completely, I'll say, thoroughly disrespectful. And it's a relatability, that's why he talks like. But again, the fact that he uses the N-word and B-word, again, is examples of the self-hatred for himself, having yet found the solutions and having the same frustrations that Brethren Sneako has. But fewer people being able to call him out on it, because he's also found discipline, whether you call that maturity, whether the young brethren call that lack of spryness or otherwise. So then, actually, interestingly enough, Brethren ABA kind of gets a little bit provoked about that, to refer to sexual intercourse in a very crass way, subjective way. So, just so that his patience is not a matter of him being just ignorant, or his patience isn't a matter of him being old and producing any less semen than what he was producing at young 20s or whatever. So he's still got to prove himself to the young bucks by disrespecting the women. Standard situation with oppressed kinfolk, oppressed brethren. So we can do better than that. Continuing on.
In fact, how about I tell you this one? And this is something even Andrew Tate says. This is something even Andrew Tate says. All right? Sex becomes overrated after time.
No, it's overrated now.
Yeah, he says new pussy. He's like, why do you think that is?
Because you get used to it. It becomes like when you eat the same food over and over again, it becomes boring. That's why you get new. That's why you get new pussies. So you spice it up. Or you keep upgrading.
But guess what? After you had enough new pussy, there is no more new pussy.
There's always,
Do you understand?
there's always new
No,
pussy.
you think that. After you've had a few dimes, you realize dimes ain't nothing. After you've had some baddies, you realize baddies ain't nothing.
So what do you
Why do you think so many of these dudes, as they get older in life, they stop talking about this shit nearly as much?
All right, so again, I'm going to talk about this further. Again, just objectifying women as sexual gratification providers without recognizing, and again, this is speaking of evidence to the solutions that Brethren ABA has yet to find, and perhaps, ironically, perhaps a very strong relatability between the two brethren, because it's a similar conundrum. But again, recognizing that the whole point of sex, and additionally, and as Brethren talked about, not agreeing with the protocol or principle of abstaining from sex before marriage, but this is evidence of where that politics comes from, the ignorance from, and I don't mean to sound derogatory or be disrespectful, but recognizing, again, talking about healthy relationships, being able to speak respectfully about a woman, about women, about one's own family, women in the family, and about the women in other people's family. It's not just a matter of referring to in crass, disrespectful terms like that, like domestic animals or otherwise, clothing and food, because it's one of the reasons when he talks about getting tired of blah blah blah, is because that's all it's seen as it. But when women are recognized for being spiritual beings with tremendous capacities that beyond what men can fathom, and sexual gratification, sexual intercourse, orgasm is a very minute experience within relationship with a woman and with women. So when there is this, and I can't speak from experience because I'm still working on it, however, when there is that relationship, there is that respect, the sexual intimacy and the sexual gratification doesn't get old, because it's not just based upon aesthetics of dimes and baddies. It's an intimacy and a continuation. So any conversation framed in this way is not going to lead towards solutions, and that's a critical part. That's a significant part of societal solutions, is the healthiness of the relationship. Again, example of His Majesty Haile Selassie and Her Majesty Wazir Rahman, perfect balance of husband and wife, respect for both towards each other. What a healthy relationship is, won't say perfection or otherwise, but just particularly for men who don't have that personal experience, for that to be an example, an inspiring example of both a sovereign mindset and the healthy relationship and healthy balance between a husband and wife, and that's solution, that's connected with economics, that's connected with politics, that's connected with work and village and everything else like that. Women and men together is the foundation of life, the foundation of procreation, and all those other things, economics, politics, finance, are secondary experiences of life that take I won't say second seat, but they're not as important, all right, as basic relationship between woman and man. And to have those solutions, it requires having that basic respect for woman and man, and that relationship of woman and man and child. So, continuing on.
Because they get older and they're less testosterone.
It's not even that. It's you realize, like, bruv, the payout ain't worth the work in.
Because you get tired. You get older, you don't have as much energy. You get,
It's like, even if you had the energy, because it's not worth the time. You know, there's a video, and like, maybe you don't give a fuck about his opinion, but
no, I do.
I thought it was great. It's one with Shaquille O'Neal, and he talks about his divorce with his first wife. And he's like talking about like how, you know, he was fucking left, right, and center, and she was giving him kids. And at one point during this period, he got caught cheating, and ended up fucking up the marriage. They get divorced, and now, you know, Shaq is, I think, closer to 50. And he says something that I thought was so telling. He says, looking back now, I realized like I was the one who fucked most of that up. And you can pull up the clip later if you ever get a chance. I'll send it to you on Discord. But he says, the most joyous moments of my life were coming home and then seeing all my kids around and then getting to spend time with them. And that divorce, going through that whole process, that really stole from me like what I realized was my biggest joy. I spend time with my nieces now. I spend time with my mom, taking her out to dinner, you know, showing her good stuff. And I realize like that's the stuff that matters for me. I've had pussy. I've had enough of it for a lifetime that I'm like, bro, if I get new one, it's not even. But when I spend time with my niece and I'm watching her like walk for the first time, or I'm seeing her say words, like that shit hits different.
So you giving up on your balls?
It's not even that. It's like
balls have purpose. Balls have greater purpose than just being squeezed.
You know, I've had experiences where the pussy was just like in front of me on a platter, and I'm like, bro, I just want to sleep early today.
Yeah, you're getting tired. You're getting older. Like that's just like I'm too tired to fuck.
Well, it's. But if I was faced with the same choice, if I was to see family or things like that, I wouldn't make that same decision. What I'm trying to tell you is your priorities shift as you get older. As you start to
is your priorities shifting, or is your testosterone just dropping?
No. As a man, your testosterone doesn't drop until like you're 40.
Tate's older than you, and he's still on like get pussy shit. I mean, he's talking about how it gets boring.
He's not. Yeah, he talks about how it gets boring and how he's barely on it nearly as much anymore.
But every video you watch is like, I wake up and I push two bitches out of the way. Are you waking up and pushing two bitches out of the way?
Bro. You know that he's saying a lot of that shit for shits and giggles. Okay.
Yeah,
no. Listen. If you're making money and you're making moves, you ain't got time to be with hoes all day.
No,
and I'll tell you this right.
Most of
the day.
Get out of my bed. I got shit to do.
If you're making money and you're really making money, you ain't got time to be with hoes most of the day. And you don't want to because you realize that making money and being able to take care of your shit is far more rewarding. Again, you a young man. What are you, 24, 23?
23.
I ain't mad at you. Be about that. Get as much pussy. Go do whatever you got to do. I'm just telling you that when you see people speak differently, it's not because, oh, they're turning into beta males or, oh, they want to be feminists all of a sudden. Life gives you experience. And as a result, it shapes a lot of the way that you think about stuff. Ask any motherfucker who got kids and talk to them about it, and they say, that's the best thing in my life. That's the most important.
And then your wife leaves you and takes half your money, takes your house, takes your dog.
That's a separate issue. That's a separate issue.
That's not a separate issue. Half of marriages end that way. Over half of marriages ended that. Like, yeah, you have your kids and everything.
I'm talking about divorced dads who have kids and tell you, I would never give up a day with my kid to go be with a hoe. He says, they will tell you, I always prioritize my children. It's not because they became beta simps. It's because they understand what's more important in life. What I'm trying to get to you as a point is life experiences, things that come to you, be it children, be it family, be it whatever the fuck it is. It changes the way that you view priorities in life. And so every time you hear people speak from a different perspective, it's not they're betas or whatever. It's just that Life has just changed them through experience.
That sounds boring. I don't want to be, when I'm 32, I want to be fucking double the bitches I'm fucking now. I want to be having a bigger house, I want to be down the Hugh Hefner shit. That's what makes you excited.
So right here, what we have, what I'm observing too, is brethren who are raised on pornography and gangster films, and that's all kinfolk. That's like the predominant paradigm of authority that kinfolk are accustomed to, and are okay with the prospect of dealing with pornography as a lifestyle, but at the same time being dissatisfied with the injustices of the system. It goes hand in hand, brethren. So, being okay with exploitation and usury and down pressure on one side, but then finding it intolerant, inexcusable, and anybody who doesn't is a sellout. On the other hand, inconsistency. Healthy relationship is congruency amidst those joints. So meanwhile, people have the rebellious, that what often happens is youth have the rebellious mentality of wanting the sex and the indulgences when it comes to sexual exploitation and gratification with women, and then at the same time endeavor to be just with regards to what the system is doing, but in order to be unfair to women and then expect fairness within the system, it means having that rebel trope, revolutionary. So that's the semblance, that's the feigness of congruence between those two. Exploiting women on one side and then fighting exploitation on the other side. And to be fair and honest, women exploit men too. So it's not just a one-way thing. I don't know if that's red pill, blue pill, green pill. Stop. However, it does exploitation and game is run in both directions. So, but for the men at the moment, that's what is shared. Continuing on.
Keeps your balls going. Like, you can't let go of that. You can't let go of your manhood at a certain age. If you give up on that, I'm like, oh, I like playing macaroni drawings with my kids.
You know what you sound like? You sound like a lot of the young women I know who say they just want to travel for the rest of their life and live on the beach. And then they get to 30, 35, and you know what they realize? Damn, I want a husband. I want to have kids.
No, I want to have kids too. What else? Okay. In the kitchen.
Okay. And you know what? Once they have those, they realize, oh, this is the shit. I don't need to be out here in Cancun taking fucking selfies all day. Listen, it sounds great to be fucking many women.
No.
I'm just telling you. Almost every guy.
That's not a valuable comparison. That's not a good comparison, because a woman saying she wants to travel and drink martinis and Mykonos all day, that's giving up and that's not doing anything. For me to have 10 bitches in the crib, like in bikinis serving me food, I need to constantly be getting it, because if I'm not getting it, then they can't be here. They don't respect me. So constantly having women in my life is to motivate me more to be the best man I could be. The more bitches I got, the badder bitches that are here, the more I'm going to keep on going.
Him talking to oneself. Utilizing sexual exploitation of women as motivation to get it. What is it? Money from the system. Like that genuine, I didn't play it before, but that genuine frustration at the beginning with like life and everything else like that. But then the reversion towards just the ignorant mentality when referring to like the basics and the baseness of life. It explains itself, or it shows itself at least. So again, one other thing also is, how do you expect to go from like talking to women or talking about women in such a way, using the B word, being all types of disrespectful at some point, and then at some other point, presumably in some proximity of duration, then having a wife and committing the rest of one's life to serving and providing for a wife. How does one anticipate that sequence from just continual disrespect and exploitation to then committing to a woman, any woman, because that type of exploitation to any woman is an essential exploitation and disrespect and devaluation of all women. So how can a man later expect to lower himself to commit and promise to provide what he has to that woman for the rest of life? Any woman for the rest of life, going from that initial experience of rampant exploitation and disrespect and devaluation. So just the logic of that too. How do you expect to do that? Relationship is strengthened through regularity and compromise and discipline.
Motivates you.
Okay, listen, I'm not mad at you. And like I said, I think this just comes down to a different age. So I'm not even going to try to like convince you or anything. All I'm going to say is this. You're going to have experiences with your friends. Y'all going to go to maybe a specific dinner. You take a trip. Maybe y'all watch a movie. Y'all having a laugh. And that's going to be a really valuable memory for you. And as you're going to get older, you're going to forget about 95% of the women that you fucked. But you're always going to remember the stuff that you spent with your family, the really beautiful moments. And so you don't have to believe me today. You don't have to believe me tomorrow. I'm just saying, if you come at a point later on in life where you start to question certain things, maybe just think back on this and just think about it. That's all. I don't think you got to agree because you're not at that point yet in your life. I'm not mad at you.
I do agree. Like that sounds appealing to me too. Like going and watching like a rom-com, like cuddling up and she puts your legs on top and you have a candle lit. That sounds great. But nowadays, the way Western women think, they always are aiming for more. So that does sound ideal, but all of them, because of Instagram and because of stuff they're looking at, women don't want to settle as much as, like, at the same level that men don't want to settle. What is your general opinion?
Right there, Brethren Sneako is communicating a resignation when he's referring to Western women. And it might be pervasive, yes. But what he's glossing over is the existence of women who don't fit that mold. That such women actually exist. Particularly traditional women who aren't raised with social media or otherwise. So just to know that there are women who are raised in an increasingly healthy way, with healthy expectations and healthy commitment towards marriage. And the fact that he doesn't acknowledge that just implicitly within what he's talking about in terms of Western women categorically shows a certain amount of laziness, to be honest, and a lack of willingness to acknowledge the existence of what he's actually looking for, and the possibility that the reason why him not experiencing that is his own doing. And again, particularly at a younger age, I'm going to play the younger card now too, but also at a younger age, not knowing what it requires to be a man to provide for such a woman that he's actually looking for. So, and it's difficult. It is when women are extremely attractive and showing willingness and sharing willingness of sexual intimacy. It's very difficult to continually, day after day, deny that. So men at younger age tend to be further susceptible to temptation, less disciplined and knowledgeable about the consequences of the lack of discipline, or to the susceptibility and indulgence within temptation. So that's one thing perhaps Brethren ABA, and to be honest, I mean, from the other things that Brethren ABA communicates, like, it sounds like there's still a lot for him to learn in terms of respect for women, and additionally, even though it's toned down from what Brethren Sneako is communicating, it's still disrespectful, still exploitation. So, and I'm not perfect. I'm not better than, not even better than. But I'm just observing and communicating for other kinfolk's sake, for the record, and for well-being. It's already getting dark now. Body, mind.
On the manosphere.
Continuing.
My opinion on the manosphere, at least from like a lot of the content creators that I've seen, I think there's a need for it, which is what I've always said. There's a need for content that kind of helps you guide young men because we don't have any tools. I just think that a lot of the people who are doing the leading aren't very good at their job. But I also say I'm not going to be one of them people who's going to take over their spot. So I can't even knock them that hard for trying to do what they do. But sometimes I like to have a laugh at some of the goofy shit I hear. I'm like, I ain't buying that. So
yeah,
that's how I feel.
Your girlfriend needs to delete her Instagram.
The girlfriend, so I've had this conversation many times. My issue isn't that the girlfriend needs to delete the Instagram. My reason is just some of the reasons that they say is goofy. Like, if you want to say your girl doesn't want it, you don't want to have Instagram because you don't want her thirst trapping or having her ass out online. I'm like, that's perfectly sensible to say you don't want your girlfriend doing that. You get what I'm saying? Me, it's the whole double speak that these guys do. Where it's like, oh, my girl can be thirst trapping, but if I want to do it, it's perfectly fine. It's like, okay, yeah, if you're making millions of dollars and you one of them high value dudes, that's fine. But most of the motherfuckers watching your shit are poor. So them rules don't apply to them. So let's talk about real people. Let's not just talk about what rich niggas do.
So do you think maybe it's not that you're being disingenuous, but that you appeal to normal people rather than trying to elevate people?
Sneeko, at the end of the day, most people are never going to be filthy rich. You're the exception. You're the 1%. That's not possible
I'm not
for
filthy
everybody.
rich. I'm not rich, but like I tell my chat every day, like
You are.
I'm rich.
Whether you realize it, Sneeko, you make well over 6 figures.
Yeah,
you
but
are less than 1%.
I'm still like my student loans are being paid off this week, so technically I'm in debt.
It doesn't matter whether you're in
That's
debt.
not- that does matter.
Your projected income for this year and for the next subsequent years, you are less than 1%er.
It's projected because I'm putting in the work. But right now,
I don't disagree.
On paper, I have negative money.
I'm not disagreeing with you that you didn't work hard. I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to say is the rules of dating that exist for you as somebody who's making a lot more money, who has a lot more flexibility, are not going to be the same rules of dating that exist for the everyday person. Do you understand that?
Okay, that's fair. But shouldn't we encourage men to strive to be high value men instead of just accepting their place on the totem pole?
No, I don't think you should be pushing people to strive to be that.
Men should be complacent?
Because here's the thing. It's one thing to say, hey, guys, if you...
This sound very pandering, like mutual pandering of like self-congratulations of material exclusivity. And this whole notion of high value. We know the brethren of blessed memory of our fraternity mentions this as well. And it's a term that's being utilized recently in popular culture. But again, the things that are being touted and coveted in that appellation, that application of term, are not the necessities of life. So the whole conversation is skewed and limited, and actually, to be honest, self-defeating, because it attaches itself to the things that provide unhealthiness. Continuing on.
get to this level, cool, congratulations. Most people are never going to get to live that life.
But they
You
should try
understand
to.
that?
A lot of guys give. Okay, but here's my problem with it. A lot of guys give up, and instead of admitting where they're at or trying to improve, they make up excuses for why. Like they'll say,
All right, now this is drunkenness, again, intoxication within the riches, and now it's the money talking. And before the conversation is about system and additionally, but now it's a matter of speaking from a position of affluence or distinction, elitism within the system that was just a minute ago being vilified. So Brethren ABA maintains a comparative consistency because he didn't vilify the system. He said find a way of existing within it, focusing on home front. On one side, the volatility, the expansive variation is on the part of Brethren Sneeko in this instance, because at the beginning he's talking about they own everything, they got the money for everything, that the power, they got all the power, da 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 da. The entire system is this and the other. And now he's been led into a conversation where he's effectively defending that position of having elitism, being called rich. Now he's feeling like, oh, he's valued because he's got money now. So now he's Brethren ABA has positioned him in his jiu-jitsu rhetoric to defend and proclaim that position of elitism within the very system that Brethren Sneeko at the beginning of the conversation was condemning and vilifying. And at the moment, Brethren Sneeko is drunk because we just talked about sex and women. He knows how effective it is to have money, to have sex with very attractive women. And so now that cipher has been conjured. Brethren ABA maintains a consistency because he never was negating that. By being insistent on describing Brethren Sneeko as being part of that elite club within the system. Now Bertrand Sneeko is justifying and rationalizing his position, and then recruiting and saying, well, shouldn't, as a way of keep maintaining his audience and that sense of solidarity and integrity, saying, and everybody should be like us, almost like Paul, being asked about wanting to convert everybody except for the chains. But Paul himself did not repent. So that's another conversation, because he did not let go of his own citizenship within the Roman Empire. When push comes to shove with Brethren Paul, St. Paul, he doesn't call upon God, he doesn't call upon Jesus, he calls upon Caesar. So it's kinfolk claim Jesus, but at the same time roll with Caesar. That's for the past 2,000 years. That's not shade, that's not disrespect. Facts. So Bertrand Sneeko here is in the position of elitism, claiming condemnation of system, but then now not just rationalizing and justifying his position within the elitism of the system, implicitly advocating and recruiting brethren to join him in that elitist experience. Brother ABA is sitting quietly. Orchestration. Peace and blessings. I know we continue on with this. We still got 10 minutes with this.
Crypto guys that I'm doing videos with, they got lucky with their investments. It's like, no, you don't get lucky. Like, being smart puts you in lucky positions. Everybody can get it now. The internet allows everyone to be rich. You're making that face, but money now is all numbers on your phone.
Okay, Sneeko, you understand that the whole principle of rich is the whole idea of abundance, and that if you have an abundance, somebody has to have less?
Yeah, but everybody watching this stream has an internet connection, so we all have the capability to get there.
We all have the capability to get that there, but it's only the resources are finite. It's not possible for everybody to be filthy rich. It's not possible for...
It is. It is. If they have a phone, it is. There's no excuse anymore. With a phone connection, all the information's online. All the stuff that I've learned about how to make videos about how to make money have been from YouTube tutorials. Everything. We all have the capability to get rich. And like, I think you saying that is like encouraging complacency, when, because it's getting so much harder for men, we should not encourage that behavior. Like,
No, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not trying to encourage people to be complacent. What I'm trying to tell you is that your paradigm is all fucked up. The idea that everyone can be rich is, one, not backable by any fucking economist in the world. Nobody would ever say everybody could be rich. However, what I am trying to say is you don't need to be rich to lead a...
Way out of pocket. Like, this whole conversation has gone like, I mean, Brother ABA is the most closest with like rational thinking at this point. Brethren Sneeko is out of it at this point. And like the whole point is lost of like what true wealth is. And even though Brethren ABA is schooled and raised based upon previous testimony in a knowledge about traditional strength, knowledge of self, he is also without a lot. I mean, he's also very heady, very intellectual, and very critical of authority too, generally speaking. So because of that, there seems to be less of a literacy and like readiness to discuss what true wealth actually is, what true value, high value is within a being, what the what the purpose of life itself is, and how to fulfill the purpose of life. Brethren ABA talks near it when he talks about family and the importance of family and relationship and those elements. That's part of it, though. What's the purpose of family? So again, that requires a spiritual literacy, that requires a religious literacy, or some type of discipline literacy. It actually requires spirit when we get into the whole notion of purpose of life, because science is not going to answer that. So those answers help establish foundation for talking about relationship with man and woman. What's the purpose of that relationship? And then in that purpose, what's the role, what's the responsibility of both the man and the woman in that relationship? And then it's a matter of having that knowledge, the wealth of those responsibilities in that relationship. And then because of that, then being able to trust others proficiently. Trust isn't a binary of yes or no. It's degrees and in different directions. I trust this person for that. I don't trust that person for that. Or I have much trust in that person to do this. I have less trust in that person for doing that. those decisions, those discriminations are optimized when we have a knowledge about ourselves, a relationship with Creator, an answer for our purpose in this life, and then everything else is put into context accordingly.
Life, to live a life of happiness. I don't know about you and where you've lived specifically, but I've had the luxury of living all over. Even in the States, when I go to the South, a lot of people out there aren't talking about being filthy rich. If they can have their home, have their farm, have their land, have their guns, have their wife, they're happy. Not everybody needs to be, quote unquote, rich to live a good life. And when you sell this paradigm to people, you're inherently making it so that vast majority of your audience who buy into this will always be unhappy, because they'll never be able to reach something that is not feasible for everybody.
Why
so
is
what
it
I'm trying to
for everybody? If we all have a phone and interconnection and we could all download Coinbase.
Everybody does not have a phone. Everybody doesn't want a phone. So right there, you're limiting the population. And again, this is like basic economics. As Brendan ABA is talking about scarcity and abundance, the whole notion of being rich. Rather than saying rich, if that's the genuine like yearning, it's an empathic. Because now what Brendan Sneeko, the economics of the Brendan Sneeko isn't matching with the initial politics. Because he's on this libertarian kind of get money kind of thing. That's a different grind, a different hustle, a different movement than the egalitarian empathy kind of game. So fatigue now is a factor now too. It's going to be urination in a minute because bloody. This is actually the second joint. Summertime. Simmer. Nobody got the keys to my Beamer. All right. So, again, knowing what wealth is, what genuine wealth is. Not everybody has a phone, just to be honest about that. And so the conversation is addressing a very specific demographic. And as Brendan ABA says, not everybody wants all those things, because people have greater understanding what true wealth is. It's also beyond happiness. It's also beyond personal happiness. It's fulfillment of purpose for something greater than ourselves.
We could all make content. We could all there's a million fucking ways to make money online.
I think you'd have to probably sit down with an economist for him to break down all the numbers for you.
Why?
Because you're asking me how to explain the breakdown of resources in the world and how not everybody can have an abundance. If everyone has an abundance, the word abundance doesn't even exist.
Prosperity. That's another thing I'm doing. I mean, people talk about the prosperity gospel, the abundance gospel, whatever. But just how about just wellness, well-being? Identify. Example. Here's the thing that we did a number of years ago with the Sona Ashram and Votive Co-op. Actually, I think even before the days of Votive Co-op. It's basically like this. Got the number of population of the human population. The population 7 billion thereabouts. Then look at how much land there is on this earth. To be able to do agriculture, and recognizing like we're not going to do agriculture on the whole earth, because some of the earth is going to be, some of it is not available for agriculture, but even that area of land that is available for agriculture, rainforest, and additionally, keep them as rainforests. So, but just looking at agriculture at this moment, the land, how much food can the earth provide in a year of general conditions? And then how many people does that feed in a year? There's our framework of understanding what fair wealth is in society and in the global community. Are we able to provide enough with the current population rate to have something left over just in case during the rainy season, during the winters or otherwise? And then same thing with all the basic materials that we have in life for shelter, clothing, and additionally going to sleep and getting wake up bounces. And that I was going to sleep. But that's a basic idea. So rather than getting these concepts and these hype talks about that's all pimp talk. It's all drunkenness. It's all confusing the mind to become further impressionable and susceptible to a sales pitch, to pimp talk. So just basics. bring it back to nature, bring it back to the actuality. How many people on this earth? How much land is there on this earth? You go to the United Nations, go to the Food and Agricultural Organization, go to the World Food Program at the United Nations system, and the information is right there. UN Statistics Division. Find the information for that. See how much land there is. It's actually readily available, and updated regularly. It gets very detailed in terms of looking at not just what land there is, but the yields. How much land, if we plant all rice, how much rice could we expect to get? If we did this with all grain or corn or wheat or whatever else, how much could we expect to get based upon this type of soil history and otherwise? You can get the details of it very quickly. And then once you find that, the patterns, growth, harvest patterns, and additionally, in each given year, how much is actually cultivated in the past year? How much rice? How much oats? This, that, and the other. What if we didn't feed all the farm animals with half the produce that we grow, and instead, let go of some of the population of the animals, domestic farm animals that are being bred for slaughter anyways. So, not regenerating that slaughter population as much, and then sharing the produce that was going to those animals with each other. So how much is that? And if we were to share that equally, everybody gets exactly the same amount. How much would that be? Is that enough to sustain entire life? That's the premise for determining fair economics, rather than just hype, pimp talk, brethren. Peace and blessings. Continuing on.
Richness nearly determines that you have more than others. You understand that?
To get rich in the first place, you need to accept the realities of the world and that things are unfair, and you need to apply yourself.
Okay.
Most people hear what you're saying. A lot of people hear what you're saying and just accept, yeah, I'm never going to be rich. And then they won't. If you think that way, you will not get rich. But if you think it's possible, I have to get rich or die trying, more likely than not, you...
Now it's not a matter of the system being fair. Now it's a matter of recognizing it's not fair and then trying to get as much as possible accordingly. That's a mind that has given up in many ways, has resigned itself into the current advantages that exist, but as eventually recognize that the current advantages are fleeting, one way or the other.
Sneeko, this is one of those things where I feel like people think everyone's the main character. Okay. No, not everyone is the main character. Some people are side characters. Some people are really good role players within a storyline. Not everyone gets to be a main character. Not everyone gets to live by the same rule. Not everyone gets to be a king, okay? There are kings, there are jesters, there are other people, but not everyone gets to live at the top. That's just not the way the world is built.
But the world for average men now is getting harder and harder. The average man is invisible now.
Yeah, okay. I don't disagree with that. So we can talk about that. But the solution to that is not making everyone a high-value man. Even
what is being observed is that those claims or those statements that Sneeko was making, regardless of the accuracy, whatever, given what he's revealed about his intentions and what his ambitions are, and this is not a fault to him. It's just an observance, because again, he's in the process of learning still and finding. I guess particularly now, this is a couple of years ago this conversation is, and now he's on a spiritual journey, and so respect for him in that respect, but he's finding the solutions are not through money. That's what we're told often in terms of, that's why I study economics, because we're told when we're young, particularly as men, money, find out where the money is. But then when we learn how money works, we recognize that it's not money, it's other types of capital. So, but by that time we get that knowledge, there's already been separation from relations, and so it's further difficult to organize and share that in a convincing way when everybody else is still being told money. And then if anybody wants to voice up and share that without approval, craziness! Don't listen to him; he's gonna get you in trouble. So, but here again, brethren, Sneeko is revealing his ambitions at least at that time. Where on one point it's a matter of overthrowing system, but then at the same time when you talk about getting rich with money, that's having system credits and finding ways of getting system credits. And then he's articulating this proletariat kind of rhetoric as a way of recruiting audience to sympathize, or not sympathize, but to identify with what he's saying, because he knows he gets benefits from that. That's how he gets his credits, his system credits, is by stringing kinfolk along on the as audience to his rhetoric. It's disenfranchised kinfolk. So even though he's doubling down on the system himself as his means for supporting himself, and further, he's advocating, or he's on one hand advocating the change of the system, overthrow, whatever it is he's suggesting, and then on the other side saying that everybody has the opportunity, like he does, and thus buy into the system. Anyway, there it is. Continuing on.
Samuels will tell you that's not even possible. God rest his soul. That's not possible for everyone to be filthy rich, which is why Kevin always talked about encouraging these women to understand the importance of a blue-collar person and to be respectful of them, because the guy doing your plumbing is extremely important in society. And even though he might not be the most rich person, he still brings the...
What's also absent, I'm observing this, is just like how to value people and how to look at people, at occupation and materiality. Again, and that's done because it's a comparatively significantly secularly conditioned psyche that just sees people at these like surface aesthetics, and at best like maybe some behavioral influence because of the aesthetics. But like when we recognize at the very core, it's like spirit being, its infinity exists within each of us, and from that, like the occupation is like comparatively inconsequential. Plumbing is a sacred thing. Cleaning a house is one of the most important things that could be done in life. That is where the children are raised. That's sanctuary. That's where the guests are provided with hospitality. That's where treaties are done in a clean house. So again, it takes a spiritual literacy, a literacy of phenomena beyond this world, beyond this earthly experience, beyond the senses, to be able to understand the value of life itself, the purpose of life itself, the value of life itself, and the value of each life, particularly amidst our differences. Continuing on.
To give you stability. His goal with what he was saying wasn't that everybody got to be rich and all these thoughts got to get with kings. No, what he was trying to say is that your standards are unreasonable and that you don't deserve that. So relax.
You don't deserve that.
You understand? You can't just sit there
and relax and calm down.
What I am telling them is that everyone trying to buy into this whole like I'm gonna get rich one day is making them miserable because it's not possible. So
how is it not possible? Like, I don't understand. You're telling me to ask an economist, but you're also saying just give up. It's not possible. But it is. If you have a phone,
Okay, so point me to one place in the society where everyone's rich. Where's the society on the planet?
Not everybody applies themselves. Because, look, the rules of the game now, all of capitalism is a game. And since birth, they suppress you and tell you to go into these worlds, go into dead end school, get this job here, do this, take your meds. And so instead of, like, realizing that they can get rich if they apply themselves, they give up. It is possible, but the game is rigged against them, so the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
Just understand the logical fallacy of that assertion, that it's a conspiracy about those who control the game and determine who's rich and who's not. But everybody has the opportunity of being rich if they don't listen to the people who are running the game and be rich themselves. Understand what's being communicated. Just again, when you talk about being rich monetarily, you're talking about money. You're talking about accumulation of monetary units, dollars, presumably for Brethren Sneeko. So it's like telling people to rebel against the system by being further motivated to be within the system. Is that clear? If one is genuinely dissatisfied with the system, it's a matter of finding another solution outside the system. That means no money, nothing. If you're like mad at somebody and don't want to have anything to do with them, stop. Distance. Continuing on.
Okay. So
that's not true.
Are you saying throughout all of society and all of world history, the reason why there wasn't an entire society of rich people is because they didn't work hard enough?
Is because not because they didn't work hard enough, but they've been brainwashed to think that they need to relax and calm down, that they need to accept their place in society instead of striving for more. And the reason they think that is because the people at the top do not want those people to challenge their position. But I'm saying fuck those people. Fuck them all at the top, touching kids on islands. Suck my dick. I'm going to get there. Not with the part with the kids, but I wanted my own island. What's the bad?
That was self-revelation, self-revealing right there. the rebellious mentality of emulation, emulating the downpression, emulating imperialism. Fidel Castro, peace and blessings be with him. That's not respect to him, and additionally, however, somewhat of the example, somewhat. Not Fidel is not equatable to Batista, I think is his name is. But anyway, continuing on.
Okay. Fuck you, getting everything, taking private jets all over the world, telling me what I can and can't do, what I should inject and what I shouldn't inject, telling us to quarantine because of some gay STD from monkeys. They're going to keep us inside again. You know that? And now I see it on Twitter. I thought everybody was going to think that the monkey shit was a joke. And now people are like, why are we locking down again? That mentality is why so many people aren't rich and why people think it's not possible.
So you think that if people aren't rich, they're going to be miserable?
It's getting harder to be happy if you're an average person. Because
that's not what I asked you. I asked you, if people aren't rich, can they be happy?
They can, but they also need to be complacent to some extent. And I'm the type of guy where I need to have complete freedom to be happy. If I feel any restrictions on me, and I think a lot of men naturally feel like that. If someone's telling you what to do, there's a part of you that's being suppressed. Because men, naturally, you just want to conquer. Like, I get pissed off when people have more than me. Or like, I see hotels and resorts. Like, why can't I own that? Why can't I get that?
Okay. But let's just take a couple steps.
There may be a natural proclivity within men to conquer, but there's a greater nature of stillness and cooperation. So, continuing on.
So you agree with me that it's not because people are poor that they can't be happy, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we're on the same page. So my prescription to people isn't that you have to aspire to be rich or aspire to be this. What I'm trying to sell folks is you can be happy regardless of your financial situation. Well, I mean, above a certain level. Obviously, if you're like struggling to make your rent every month, then obviously that's a different situation. But past like 40, 50K in most cities, not every city, you're going to be okay.
50K?
So now listen, maybe not New York, okay? But if you take 50K and you go to a lot of major cities, yes, you're going to be good. Okay?
Really?
So let me just, yes. So past a certain point, what I want to discuss is what are the things that lead people to be happy outside of money? I think we have such a fixation on material goods.
You need a good relationship. You need freedom. You need to be able to do what you want and speak your mind.
When you say a good relationship, what does that mean?
A good relationship with the people around you, your friends, your family, and your woman.
Okay. All right.
women.
So community, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let me ask you, of the two things, let me know which was more important. Do you think it's more important for somebody to have 50K and have a good community, or for someone to have $1 million but have no community? Which one do you think is better?
50K with the community, it probably yes. But
Okay.
Can I respond to that? They are trying to separate community now. They're trying to divide us more than ever. You know what they did during the COVID? They said to not discommunicate with your family who didn't take this. Don't talk to them. If someone's not wearing, don't talk to them. They try to divide us more and more. If you voted for this orange guy and not the older guy, then don't talk to him. They try to divide us more. If you don't put a black square on your Instagram, then you're racist. They try to divide us more and more. So the community is falling apart. Like, so many people are so polarized because of what they believe in and their standings. And it's all encouraged from the top. They say, you need to believe in this. Like, you need to put Ukraine in your bio, put this GoFundMe. And everyone just is so political that there's a lack of community. And that's why I need to get at it. The idea is that people's worldviews are so different that there's a genuine lack of community. And especially on social media is making it worse.
So, just taking a couple steps back. So we started off at young men are really miserable and they're unhappy, right? And then when we talked about income, and you agreed with me that even with 50K, it's probably better to have $50,000 a year and have a really good sense of community, family, significant other, friends, than it is for you to be extremely wealthy and have nobody around you.
Right.
So you put community above money. Yes?
Right. But it's almost impossible to have a good community now. As a young man with 50K, it's almost impossible.
But that's not true. That's not true. Okay, why is it impossible?
Because of how divided everybody is. Because of how they literally say stand 6 feet apart. There you go.
All right. So right there, nice job with brother AB right there. ABA, giving that scenario very plain, binary, but in that showing the example of the importance of community that Brethren Sneeko immediately recognizes and says himself. Now, what the hang-up that he describes is that He blames others for separating. So at that point, now let's get into that further conversation about the nature of community, the nature of relationship, how to cultivate that trust. That's the substance right there that Brethren ABA just introduces very nicely. And at that point, how about this? What Sneagle Brethren said just a minute ago in terms of what contributes to him having the riches: hard work, effort, putting work into it. How about that? Putting work into relationship with community. How about that? Not blaming anybody else. What does it take to have positive relationship with community? Communication, regularity, interaction. Okay. Is that not within people's doing, capabilities? Can you see examples of communities having that at this moment? Who is your community? And whose doing is it? What the community experience is. If there's trouble with the communication and division, then why let the intermediaries, why let the saboteurs in the equation? How can you close up ranks within your community to experience optimal well-being as community? Letting go of the million, letting go of even the 50, or some people letting go of the 50 and having greater responsibility in being those cultivators of relationship. How about that? Nice job, Brethren ABA.
Community, cover your face. I can't talk to you. Don't look at me. Put a shield over you.
Again, there's legitimacy within all those criticisms, but that's complaining. It's what children do. Women do this too. Peace and blessings to women. Men don't complain. Men find solutions. And when challenges get nasty, bring it. It makes the glory greater, and we're not here for glory. But that is the nature. So don't complain. Fuck that. Bump that. Whatever. Hallelujah. Blessings upon blessings. Let's go. That's what men do. Accept whatever the conditions are. It's raining right now. Beautiful. Bring it on. It's sunshiny right now. Beautiful. Bring it on. There's all types of injustice and unfairness and ignorance in this life, in this world, in this society. Beautiful. Bring it on. How you going to teach otherwise? How you going to be righteous otherwise? When you identify a characteristic, you establish the antithesis of that characteristic. Dao Te Ching. So, again, but that requires maturity, as Brethren ABA was saying before. He's got a smirk on his face now. I'm looking. But recognizing that work, one labors for that which one loves, and one loves that for which one labors. You're going to love your riches, or you're going to love your community, your peoples. That's St. Paul right there. Mr. didn't repent. That's sarcasm towards myself. But I don't condemn St. Paul. He's with God at this moment. So he does his job. Hallelujah. Continuing on.
Dividing people. They don't want you to have community anymore. Sit in this seat and take away the chair in the middle so you can't look at someone else.
Okay. I don't disagree that during the pandemic it's probably hard to have.
And there's another one coming. The monkey thing's just started. The world, WHO just declared it.
And if it turns out to be an extended thing that we're going to deal with for many more years to come, I think you'll have. Well, hey, we will see. And if you do, then I will concede to you that. Although I'm conceding to you. I'm saying you're right. Okay, breathe. I'm saying you're correct. If we have to continuously live in lockdown in perpetuity, where we never get to spend time with other people and be around other folks, I would agree with you that it is extremely dangerous for people, and it makes it untenable to have communities. Okay?
Do you know how many people?
And that also precipitates people into resisting and standing up and overthrowing. So there's a limit to what the so-called powers that wannabe can do. And again, point to ourselves, we empower ourselves. Point to others, power others. It's our decision.
Ceding to you.
Okay. Do you know how many people I talk to who are like, man, I just moved out. I got a job. I'm making money. But like, how do I make friends? Where do I talk to people? Like, I can't go to school because my school's shut down.
Okay. Well, listen, I can't speak about everything. I know you say it's all connected, so for me, it's too large in scope.
What's
so
your idea about the government? Do you trust the government?
I trust it for some things, and I don't trust it for others. I think the government fucks up in some places, and it does well in others. That's how I kind of view it. And so if you want to go think case by case, fine. But, government operates in different branches. It's hard to say the government. It's like saying, do you think the shoe industry is good? It's like, well, what company? Some companies are worse than others. Some of them are ethical. Some of them are not.
Wait,
you can't just go. I feel like when I hear you speak so broadly. I don't know what is your top. What do you think about women? What does that mean? Like, you have to be more specific. And so that's what I'm saying. Let's just focus on one thing. Okay. And then we'll go from there.
Ask me something. I've been ranting like.
Yeah. I know. You've been passionate.
Yeah.
There it is. All right, so there's a conversation. We're going to keep it at that. We give all thanks and praise to the Most High Elohim. Blessed love and peace and Rastafari.